Now to Waterbury Superior Court, where the woman accused of holding her stepson captive for more than 20 years appeared before a judge. 3 motions were on the table today in court. That's the release of medical records, removal of GPS monitoring, and the ability for the victim's attorney to argue on future motions.
Yeah, Fox 61's Jamel Johnson is in Waterbury with more on that.
The Sullivan defense team left Waterbury Superior Court feeling somewhat of a win, as 2 out of 3 motions were granted in their favor. But at the center of each of those motions was the victim's, who also goes by S, feelings of safety. The 2 topics that have served as a focus of Sullivan's defense team for months are the removal of her GPS monitoring and the granting of the victim's medical records. The judge ruled in favor of the medical records being granted to the defense, and inside the records contain information regarding the victim's new name and the location he's receiving care. The state argues his safety would be in jeopardy with Sullivan knowing his whereabouts.
This is no different than a domestic violence victim being at a safe haven home. He certainly wouldn't disclose the address of a safe haven home to a domestic violence abuser, and that's the case in the state's position that this is.
Attorney Jonas Kolotis said he's confident the release of these records won't put S's safety at risk.
It's something that is shared with defendants in every case. My client doesn't even want to know where he is. I'm not even going to tell her the address. She doesn't need to know it for her own personal self. But if I need to discuss it with her, I should have that option. My hands shouldn't be tied as a criminal defense attorney because of someone else's feelings.
Sullivan's GPS monitoring, however, will remain on, but the judge didn't rule out any future modifications to the monitoring should Sullivan continue complying with her release conditions. A 3rd motion sought to allow S's attorney Gene Riccio to argue on his behalf against the release of his medical records and the removal of GPS monitoring, but those requests were denied.
We have obviously a serious concern about the safety of our client, and that was the reason why we wanted to be heard by the court today with regard to these motions, but the court ruled otherwise. For someone that's subjected to that type of trauma, personally I think he's courageously dealing with the situation.
Now, the judge gave Sullivan a stern warning, saying that if any information from those medical records was leaked, like S's new name or his address, then the person who leaked them will be receiving a contempt of court charge. December 19th is Sullivan's next court date, and both parties expect to be close to or done with the investigation process. In Waterbury, Jamel Johnson, Fox 61.